You might not know it by looking at me, but I'm descended from slaves that were brought over to the Caribbean through the Middle Passage during the transatlantic slave trade. This African diaspora displaced millions of Africans to North and South America and every island in the Caribbean from the 16th century to as late as the 19th century. The Middle Passage was a brutal journey that every captured African slave faced. Slave trader ships were specially designed to maximize human cargo, and the slaves were forced to lay down with their head at the adjacent slave's feet. They were insufficiently fed and laid in their own feces and vomit for months at a time, as the journey across the Atlantic was not a short one. Many of the slaves contracted diseases from the filth, and about 20% died from disease or starvation before ever reaching the New World. Once my ancestors did reach the Caribbean, they were separated from one another and auctioned off to plantation owners. They were then subjected to the harsh conditions of slave plantations that flourish in the Caribbean's tropical climate. Sugar is one of the most difficult crops to grow and requires hours of grueling hard labor under the relentless Caribbean sun. My ancestors were whipped until their backs were blistered and bleeding by any whimsy of the overseers, who rode around the fields on horses and observed the slaves as they worked. Many slaves attempted to run away and were shackled and tortured if caught. They lived in constant fear of murder and death by exhaustion. Female slaves had it particularly hard, as their white owners often raped them and they were forced to care for the children resulting of the rape. This is the role that slavery played in my ancestry. James Bruley was a mulatto living on the island of Tortola, which is part of the present-day British Virgin Islands, in the second half of the 1700s. He was described as colored in birth records because any person with African heritage was considered black at that time. It is believed that he first journeyed to St. Croix with his brother and probable owner in the year 1802. The Bruley family continued to flourish on St. Croix following James's settlement. They played a large part in the increasing slave results that resulted with Governor Peter von Scholten emancipating the slaves of St. Croix on July 3, 1848. The slave results had ruined St. Croix's economy, which had one time been the richest island in the West Indies due to its production of sugar and rum. My grandmother's grandmother was a Bruley named Alberta, born to a man named Albert Bruley and a colored woman named Eugenia Manuel. Alberta married a white man from Maine named Otis Blackwood. One of their 7 children was my grandmother's mother, who married a man from Scotland and had my grandmother. My grandmother then married a man from Spain and had my mother, who had my twin sister and I with a man from Colombia. So although the past few generations in my mother's family line have been Caucasian, it is important to remember how my family first got to St. Croix and the struggles they went through to provide the legacy that lives through my relatives and myself today. For example, my twin sister and I are fair-skinned while our cousin, related to us through our grandmother, is of a darker complexion and has more African features, such as his hair. Through much intermingling and reproduction, my family tree has become an increasing and diverse one.